I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, the war in Ukraine. Global reaction after President Trump says he wants to meet with Vladimir Putin. We're at the White House. A shot in the arm. An important day on Capitol Hill for RFK Jr., the president's pick to lead Health and Human Services. We have the latest. Start spreading the news. Cardinal Christophe Pierre gives us a preview of a major event for the faithful this weekend in New York City. Plus, an adoring public. An astounding number of pilgrims are taking part in the Jubilee year in Rome. We have the numbers. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Catherine of Ricci. Our top story tonight, President Donald Trump says that he had great talks with Russia and Ukraine, and there is a good possibility of ending the war. Trump may soon hold in-person peace talks in Saudi Arabia with Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, the push for peace has major hurdles ahead. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
In the Oval Office today, President Donald Trump signed a plan for reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trading partners. Then he took a lot of questions, including on Ukraine.
At the White House, President Donald Trump addresses the now growing possibility of ending the fighting in Ukraine.
Somebody said, oh, I should have called Zelensky first. I don't think so. I mean, we have to find out whether or not Russia wants to make a deal. I know that Zelensky wants to make a deal.
Trump says the killing must stop.
The Ukraine war has to end. The young people are being killed at levels that nobody's seen since World War II. And it's a ridiculous war. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening.
The war, now nearly 3 years old, thousands dead or wounded on both sides. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants to make sure Ukraine is included in any peace talks over fears Trump could meet alone with Russian President Putin. NATO allies also don't want European countries to get sidelined.
There can be no negotiation about Ukraine without Ukraine, and Ukraine's voice must be at the heart of any talks.
Overseas at NATO talks in Brussels, Belgium, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth told reporters there's a reason negotiations are happening right now. Vladimir Putin, he said, responds to strength.
We have the perfect deal maker at the table from a position of strength to deal with both Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. No one's going to get everything that they want. Understanding who committed the aggression in the first place.
NATO's Secretary General said when talks start, Ukraine must be in the best possible position. He also warned about Putin.
He is a strong negotiator. He is very unpredictable. But in the end, if we want to get to a peace deal, we need him there because he was the one starting this war of aggression against your country.
Meanwhile, Russia's foreign minister says the Biden administration abandoned dialogue and diplomacy. Says people should not be surprised that Trump and Putin had a, quote, normal conversation.
What struck me was that now the entire world is in a state of shock, viewing the phone conversation and the news about it as something extraordinary.
And in an effort to seek peace in Ukraine, tomorrow Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will sit down with the Ukrainian president at the Munich Security Conference. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
By a vote of 52 to 48, the Republican-led Senate voted largely along party lines to confirm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The only Republican who voted against him was former Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with reaction. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. It's great to be with you. RFK Jr.'s nomination had been in deep trouble due largely to his vocal criticism of vaccines and claiming that they cause such things as autism. But several weeks ago, some key Republican senators, like Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor, came out in support of his nomination. After the vote, Senator McConnell put out a statement saying that he's a polio vaccine, a survivor that is, and he cannot support someone who speaks out against vaccines which have saved the lives of millions of people. Democrats agreed.
Mr. Kennedy will take steps that severely undermine public health, weaken safety standards, and put the needs of for-profit corporations ahead of the needs of American families.
Mr. Kennedy has refused to tell Americans how we would manage health care issues that they're deeply worried about. Vaccine safety, women's reproductive health, drug pricing, and affordable health care.
Despite Senator McConnell's deep skepticism, other Republicans came to his defense, saying Kennedy is uniquely positioned to revive trust in public health agencies.
He will bring a fresh perspective to health care, prioritizing consumer choice, information transparency, and early interventions to strengthen the well-being of all Americans.
Also on the Senate side,
the vote of 12 to 10, the nomination will be favorably reported to the floor.
The Judiciary Committee voted to send to the Senate floor the nomination of Kash Patel to be head of the FBI. Democrats claim Patel lied under oath.
Mark my words. This Patel guy will come back to haunt you. Every piece of evidence shows that.
The top Democrat has asked the Justice Department Inspector General to investigate Patel, claiming he's already directing a purge of the Bureau.
It is unacceptable for a nominee with no role in government to personally direct the unjustified, potentially illegal firing of dedicated, nonpartisan FBI officials.
Republicans focused on the weaponization of the agency in the past and how Patel will clean it up.
The FBI targeted traditional Catholic families and concerns of parents for political reasons. The FBI coordinated with social media platforms to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop scandal.
By the way, the Senate has yet to schedule a confirmation vote for Kash Patel, but it will likely happen sometime next week. Now, if confirmed, Patel will have a 10-year term as director of the FBI. Also want to let you know that pro-abortion Democratic Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota announced that she will not be seeking re-election in 2026. She said that she wants to spend more time with family. She is the second Democrat, along with Michigan Gary Peters, who will not be running again. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Also in the hot seat on Capitol Hill today, Linda McMahon, President Trump's pick to lead the Department of Education. This comes just days after the president said that he wanted McMahon to put herself out of the job. The Trump administration has made it clear that it wants to dismantle the Department of Education. However, that would require an act of Congress. Senators pressed McMahon on whether she agreed.
Do you agree? Let me just once again get your feelings on this, that if there is a movement to abolish the Department of Education, it has to go through the United States Congress?
Yes, it is set up by the United States Congress, and we work with Congress. It clearly cannot be shut down without it. Chairman Cassidy.
Today's hearing was in front of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. She will go before the full Senate in the coming weeks. And joining us now with more is Angela Morabito, former press secretary for the Department of Education. Angela, good to see you again. As we just heard, the Department of Education cannot be shut down without Congress's approval, but it certainly can be restructured without an act of Congress. Let's talk about that.
Well, it's great to be with you, especially on such an exciting day for the future of education in America. So you're right, and the future Secretary, Linda McMahon, is also correct that it takes an act of Congress to shut down the Department of Education. But there's a lot that can be done in the interim to try and get rid of some of this waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on in every corner of the federal government. I mean, there are plenty of places to start, right? We've got this huge bureaucracy that's spending billions every year while student achievement continues to suffer. The latest nation's report card scores that shows 1 in 3 eighth graders are pretty much functionally illiterate. That is a national scandal, and that should say to everyone, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, that it is time for a positive change.
Angela, let me ask you this. What would happen if the Department of Education was abolished? What would happen to things like, say, college grants and student loans? How would that be handled, or would it just all go away?
Well, it wouldn't all go away. There are various proposals out there about how to preserve the core functions of the department while getting rid of the wasteful bureaucracy that we have right now. One step that we might be able to take over the next 4 years is spinning off federal student aid into its own independent agency that's able to function more like a bank. After all, it is the nation's largest consumer lender. Protecting civil rights in schools is also critically important, but we'd really like to send that over to the Department of Justice. Let the lawyers do the lawyering. Education funding would not disappear. It would just go through different mechanisms, or instead of competitive grants that take a lot of time and a lot of money, it would be block granted to the states.
I know Linda McMahon has vowed to return education back to the states, where that control was held prior to the establishment of the Department of Education back in 1980 under Jimmy Carter. That said, what is the potential benefit of giving states back control, and what's the possible downside?
Well, right now we're looking at the results of a failed experiment of federal control of education. Look at the test scores. You can see it's just not working. So the idea behind decentralizing power in education is that the people who are closest to the work and closest to the students can make the best decisions about how to use our education dollars. I think the best thing any state could do is put power in the hands of parents by giving them school choice. We're at more than a dozen states now that have universal school choice, and I hope that number gets up to 50 sooner rather than later. But it all starts with taking power out of the hands of Washington and distributing it back throughout the country.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
The Trump administration is taking New York to court, suing the Empire State over its immigration policies. The lawsuit names several officials, including Governor Kathy Hochul and State Attorney General Letitia James. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the state's use of so-called sanctuary cities do not comply with federal law.
New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next.
In response to the lawsuit, Governor Hochul sent out a statement. In it, she called the actions of the Department of Justice, quote, smoke and mirrors, saying, in part, New York is proud that immigrants from across the globe come here searching for a better life. We expect Pam Bondi's worthless, publicity-driven lawsuit to be a total failure, just like all the others. Let me be clear. New York is not backing down. All right, to Germany now, where at least 30 people were injured in what officials say was likely a targeted attack. This after a suspect drove his car into a labor union demonstration. Children were among those who were injured. The suspect is an Afghan asylum seeker who later was arrested. The incident follows a series of attacks involving immigrants that have pushed migration to the forefront of the elections later this month. Prime Minister Olaf Scholz says his government will not tolerate nor accept these type of incidents. All several are dead and dozens more injured following a gas explosion in Taiwan. The blast occurred at the food court of a department store. The upper floors of the store were blown right out, raining debris on pedestrians. Part of the store was under renovation. However, it is unclear whether that work was connected to the explosion. An investigation is underway. The Brazilian Air Force says that it shot down a small plane that was allegedly transporting drugs. Officials say the plane illegally entered the country from Venezuela. The aircraft was ordered to change its route to force a landing and did not comply with the orders. Warning shots were fired, but once the plane pushed forward on its path, it was classified as hostile. The Brazilian Air Force says the measure is used as a last resort. And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a time for encounter. We are joined by the Apostolic Nuncio to the U.S. to discuss a big event taking place in the Big Apple this weekend. And the fires have fizzled, but now a new threat looms over Southern California. We'll explain. Welcome back. For the second time this year, residents in Southern California are evacuating their homes. Heavy rain is threatening new destruction in areas still recovering from last month's wildfires. A powerful storm is dumping rain over the state. There is a flood advisory in effect for Los Angeles County. The National Weather Service predicts a high risk of flooding as well as scattered debris. The California Highway Patrol posted this picture right here of a mudslide blocking a road in Santa Cruz County. Officials have been racing this week to shore up places at risk with sandbags and with concrete barriers. The biggest threat is where the earth was burned bare by the wildfires. All right, now to some good news when it comes to the U.S. labor market. Unemployment claims dropped by 7,000 in just 1 week. The numbers indicate stability in the labor market. The U.S. says there were roughly 213,000 initial claims filed, down 7,000 in 1 week. There was a further drop in the number of people who are filing for unemployment after already receiving 1 or more week of benefits. Well, this weekend, thousands of people will converge on the Big Apple for the New York Encounter. The weekend-long event features presentations, speeches, and much more to the Catholic faithful. And if you cannot be there in person, you can stream it online at NewYorkEncounter.org. And for more on this great event, we turn now to Cardinal Christophe Pierre, the Apostolic Nuncio to the United States, who is speaking at New York Encounter this year. Your Eminence, wonderful to be with you today. So tell us, how did you first become aware of New York Encounter, and how did you grow to become such a supporter?
Well, New York Encounter is animated by a movement, a Catholic movement called Communion and Liberation. So this is a community of people, of lay people mainly, who have made precisely an encounter with Christ through the experience of the movement, the experience of the church. And for many years now, they are calling people to have an experience during 2 or 3 days in New York. Encounters, expositions, dialogues, so that we experience together what is our faith, and we experience also what it means to be Christians in our daily life.
Yeah, and it's such a unique event. The theme for this year's encounter is "Here Begins a New Life." What are your hopes for this year's edition under this theme?
Well, I've been participating to many of these encounters. I noticed the enthusiasm of many people. I think like every experience, we need to make it to believe in it. I think this is exactly the same with the encounter with the Son of God, with Jesus. Unless you have had the experience of an encounter, you cannot imagine what it is, how it touches your heart, how it opens your life, how it determine your future, your present, your past. So this is precisely what in the encounter is. It's not just something automatic, obviously, but through the participation, because you encounter people who have also had a kind of experience, and there is a lot of sharing. So I look forward every year to precisely to meet people, and for me it's a wonderful opportunity to meet so many people from this country who have been touched by the grace of God, by the presence of Christ, through their companions from different way of life.
Yeah, and it's even more special this year, being the Jubilee year, being held early in the Jubilee
Indeed.
year. And we know Pope Francis has given the theme of Pilgrims of Hope. Your Eminence,
Exactly.
How does this year's encounter, how does it connect with the hope of Pope Francis in this Jubilee year? What can you tell us?
I think one of the problems of the world today is that there is a lack of hope. The situation of the world at times, puts us as if we were in a corner, without future. We speak more about distraction as constructions, the problem of the war, the problem of the peace. So we as Christians, we know that what we can offer to the world, because what we can offer is what we have received. And precisely what we have received is a presence which gives us hope, the presence of a person. It's not just an idea, it's an experience of an encounter. So in this, Jubilee year, where the Pope asked us, 25 years to move ourselves, not to remain where we are. This is the Christian life, to move ourselves. We are not here to build walls, to isolate ourselves because we are full of fear. On the contrary, go out and announce the good news to all the nations. So it's just kind of, I find it always I find it always a very nice invitation to all kinds of people, because this is open for the people to experience something which is new. You know, the title of this encounter today is "Here Begins a New Life." This is a sentence which was pronounced by Dante Alighieri, the famous poet, Italian poet, because he had a very strong experience of a love with, you know, the Beatrice, and this changed his life, you know. And basically, our experiences have always to do with love.
Well, Your Eminence, thank you so much for your time today. We are very grateful. God bless you.
Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a cloudy day. Newly released video gives us a better look at the skies on Mars. Plus, we take an inside look at a Vatican event showcasing the connection between the arts and culture. Have you ever wondered what the sky looks like in Mars? Well, wonder no more. Take a look at this video right here. It shows what are called twilight clouds above the Martian surface. Experts say those iridescent colors are hard to catch because they scatter the light when the sun is setting. They can only be seen during the early evening. Scientists are also trying to understand why they appear in the planet's southern hemisphere during the fall. Well, down from the clouds around Mars to the frozen ground of Michigan. For the 10th year in a row, the students of St. Albert the Great University parish and community members have created an ice chapel. It is used for a few candlelit masses each year and is dedicated to Our Lady of the Snows. The tradition originally started during Michigan Tech's yearly winter carnival. Father Ben Haas, who directs student ministries, says that sculpting snow and ice into a worship space is a great way to bring people together and learn more about the Catholic faith. I love that. Well, as part of the 2025 Jubilee year, the Vatican is hosting a series of events this weekend aimed at artists. One Italian lawmaker says the initiative is in part a reflection of the Holy Father's deep appreciation for the arts and especially movies.
Yes, he has a great love for cinema. In fact, he often references movies and has met numerous artists, including directors and actors. In one of his biographies, it's mentioned that as a child, he would go to a small cinema in Buenos Aires where he watched black and white movies, such as, for example, Fellini's La Strada, which he loves. This passion may also have influenced his decision to support this Jubilee and to visit Cinecittà. The important thing, as I mentioned, is that there won't be just actors and directors at Cinecittà, but the entire industry, including all those artists who work on set designs and photography technicians, who are those who have contributed to Italy winning so many Oscars.
Well, events include a general gathering with Pope Francis on Saturday morning. Well, finally tonight, it has been a little more than a month since the Jubilee year started, and the Vatican just released the number of pilgrims who have passed through the Holy Door at St. Peter's Basilica. In the first month, 1.3 million pilgrims passed through St. Peter's Holy Door. Huge crowds are expected throughout the Jubilee, especially with the upcoming canonizations of Blessed Carlo Acutis and Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. One Vatican official says the true measure of success is not the number of pilgrims, but whether they encounter a change in their hearts. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night, and God bless.